kid from the bush who grew into a legend in his own lunchtime, former SAS soldier Michael J. Malone has seen it all. This is Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, hosted by the man himself, Mick Malone, along with Toby Malone, as they examine this long, storied career in the Australian Special Forces. Join us each week for behind-the-scenes insight, exclusive readings, and brutally honest truths from a true original. Welcome to Never Die Wondering. Welcome to episode 23 of Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, a podcast that explores the life and legend of Michael John Malone, OAM. My name is Toby Malone, Mick's son and co-host of this podcast series, joined by the man whose name is in the title, Mick Malone. Hey, Dad.
Hey, Toby. How are you, mate?
Good. Enjoying this process and getting to read it through.
Good.
It's good. So the last episode we were talking about routine and R&R. So you were fun and games around Nui Dat, but also then going off to Hong Kong. But I guess the whole time that you were scrubbing out toilets and watching movies and cool hand looking around Nui Dat, you were always worried about the warning order that was about to come in. You know, could come at any time.
Yeah.
So how does that feel when you feel as though your number's coming?
One day we're going to be told warning order, and someone will wave a piece of white paper as you come down the path, and we'll rush around and get ourselves organised.
And
Hopefully, got 2 days warning.
And then how was the feeling when other patrols went out? Were they on your mind, or were you trusted that they were going to be okay? Or
yeah, we'd like to think that we'd be briefed every day on how a patrol's going. But even though we weren't that interested in what they did. We're just interested in what we were going to do.
And there are a few instances in the book where you talk about how you got into some strife on a patrol. The bullets were flying. There was some. You felt like there was real trouble. You got pulled out by hot extraction, and then everyone came to NADZAB pad to greet you when you came back. So there must have been some sense when a patrol was going sideways. Did you see the? I mean, so did you know that was happening, or was it?
No, not really. The ops then obviously got the word around that the patrol's in trouble, being pulled out by hot extraction, and we'll be landing on NADZAP in half an hour or whatever. So they'd all rush up there and be there for us, when we got off the chopper. The photograph from the front of the book.
Yeah, the famous photo. Yeah,
that's one of those times. That was the last patrol, I think.
Right. Yeah, well, today we're going to be getting into talking a little bit about one of these patrols and how you prepared for the warning order. And so let's jump straight in, why don't we? So so today we'll be reading chapter 20 of Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, OAM, published in 2024 by Imprimatur Books, Perth. This chapter, entitled Armed for Bear, covers pages 157 to 162 in the print edition. The ebook may have slightly different numbering, so follow from the beginning of that chapter. As we read, the body of the text will be read by author Mick Malone. Whenever we come across a footnote, we'll pause in the least disruptive way possible, and I will read that footnote. And now, without further ado, Two Ranks on the Road.
Chapter 20, Armed for Bear, 1969. Give yourself an uppercut. It wasn't long before another warning order was issued for our patrol, Bravo 9 Sierra 41, to conduct a partial BDA, bomb damage assessment. This time we'll check out an AO further to the northwest with another 5-man patrol. Terry Hancock, Scout, Chris Roberts, Patrol Commander, Mick Malone, SIG, Dixie G, Medic, and Pasha Kez 2IC, the tail end Charlie. We carried two under and overs, one M16, me, two SLRs, and this time we were to carry 4 Claymore mines as targets of opportunity. I was again to carry the 64 set HF, Dixie a 25 set VHF, and two work 10s were also carried. Each man would carry 200 rounds of ammo, 10 mags, M26 frag grenades, one each, white phos, one each to patrol commander and 2IC. We were going armed for bear. Pancho went to the Q store to draw the rations, ammo, and other bits and pieces. A wheelbarrow came in very handy. While our PC went up for his ops briefing and the rest of us started to get our shit together, then it was down the range to rehearse our drills, test fire our weapons, and do a basic range practice out to 100 metres. There are other units on the range, including APCs, a Centurion tank, and a pair of Jeep-mounted 106 RCL rifles, RCLs, recordless rifles. It all seemed a bit uncontrolled, so we beat a hasty retreat once we had checked our weapons. We withdrew about 100 metres to practice our contact drills and then scarpered back to the hill. Pancho laid all the rations in piles and patrol members came down and picked them up along with ammo, hexamine, mozzie repellent and other bits and pieces. The briefing was later on that day. Infill would be late PM tomorrow. The day of infill dawned with expectation and slight nervousness. I'd pack and repack my pack and webbing, ensuring not a sound was made. From the buckles or the 3 water bottles on the belt with steel mugs and one-day rations in the pouch at the back. K-bar, of course, compass, signal mirror, M26 grenade, and pace counter, which had its origins in sheep farms.
Footnote: some pacers tape this to their rifle stock, but I prefer to tape it to the pistol grip.
This was a simple device that aided significantly in navigation, and as if I recall, one did me for the entire tour. It was then up to the rec hut for a briefing. The PC had laid out the various maps on the wall and on the table, and as the SMEAC briefing commenced, we found out what each of our roles were. I'd been up in the ops end for my signals brief and to pick up my radios, along with the code book and an aid memoir page with all the signs listed. So I was able to brief the patrol on all that. It was to be another recce patrol, but this time to look for targets of opportunity and to have a bash at Sir Charles. Some of the other patrols in the squadron had been in action already and had accounted for a few VC. One PC was urged on by Reg to bring home the bacon. As it were, our PC may not have been too gung-ho, but he was a game bastard who never shirked a chance to close with the enemy. We would hear a shot fired in the bush and the patrol would instinctively head towards it. My trouser map got a real workout in these instances. When I washed my bush gear after patrol, a lot of the elbow grease on my going maps. I spent a lot of elbow grease on my going maps, getting the trousers ready for the next op. If they were too far gone, I was down the Q store to get a fresh set, and they were never new. With the inevitable argument with Mizu. This cranky bastard would argue the toss about anything, and he loved standing over us young dudes. For example, on a really hairy patrol a bit later.
Footnote: recounted in more detail below and described on page 329 of Phantoms in the Jungle. Phantoms of the Jungle.
Where we could have all been killed due to the stupidity of one man. We had a big contact with a large follow-up group of VC firing RPGs at us in a creek line, which livened us up somewhat. Patrol broke up the hill and threw a bunch of wait a while I got badly caught up. The PC came and dragged me out, severely cutting my face, back and arms, ripping my clothes to shreds, but he saved my life. I'll give him that. I was in a rage and I was in rags and looked a real sight back at ANZAC. Next day I went to the Q store to trade in my cams, where Mizo was in fine form with no idea what our patrol had been through. With his customary smirk, he turned around, plucked a housewife's sewing kit off the shelf, threw it at me and said, "Sew 'em up." I was so shocked I walked out fair dinkum. I was so mad I wanted to burn the Q store to the ground. After a bit of cooling off, I gave myself an uppercut and got his corporal, Tom Bradshaw, to get me a set of cams when the buffhead Measer wasn't looking. I walked back to the lines, housewife and cams in hand, and I didn't even have a sign for it. What a win. By mid-afternoon, we were on our way down to Kanga Pad to meet our chopper crews. The RAF briefing by the Albatross lead pilot supplied us with all that we needed for the infill. And without further ado, we grabbed our packs and headed out to the choppers. The Albatross lead was parked in front of our taxi, and the two bushrangers, light fire team, took off at the arming point. They were armed with 12.7mm rocket pods on each side, along with a pair of twin M60s. They packed a real punch, and we were most thankful for their presence. We flew north with the PC and 2OC following the route on their Picto maps.
Footnote: the Picto map was one of the best bits of American kit we had, besides all the others. These were very handy adjuncts to our normal scaled map. It was in essence the same, but it accurately showed all the ground features as they actually were.
Which was stuck on the back of our ordinary 1:25,000 map. So both maps showed our AO plus about 6 grid squares on each side. When we got when we saw our infill pad and the J behind it, um, out the right door and run to the trees, all the while covered by the door gunner, with his knowledge the LFT was still in proximity. Safely into the dark green of the somewhat dry J, propped for a minute until the helos departed. Then a bearing was told to Terry Hancock, who consulted his compass, and we sorted ourselves out into single file. It was no talking now, hand signals only. The scrub was quite dry and noisy underfoot, and we were very aware of stumbling onto a footpad, but no footpads were stumbled upon. We moved for an hour due north, then propped. I drew my customary map on my trouser leg and consulted my pace counter. We'd come 200 metres in that first hour, and it was time to start looking for our night LUP. We picked a likely patch of thick scrub and circled around it to make sure Charlie had not made the same decision. Once convinced that we were okay, we sat silently for 15 minutes as the last light of day faded, with Pancho covering our rear. No cooking tonight, dry nosh only. We then quietly got our bed spaces cleared and equally as quiet got our bedding out.
Footnote: when I say bedding, a piece of plastic and with a sleeping bag silk was it. The problem was the plastic. The problem with the plastic was the chomper ants loved it. It wasn't unusual to get back after patrol to find your plastic had been shredded by chompers. Then it was a case of running the Mizu gauntlet to get more.
The night passed uneventfully, and everyone wide awake by first light with weapons ready. We were going to move before we stopped for breakfast. Fresh camp paint, and away we went on the same bearing for 300 metres. We then broke track and doubled back on our track for 50 metres and propped. "This'll do," said the PC. We spread out, watching our arcs of fire, and sat down. Um, we would eat in shifts of two, then three. The other three. We were all tonguing for a brew because even though we'd not drunk alcohol for 48 hours, we were still feeling a bit second hand.
Footnote: it was a Larry Kent breakfast, a cup of tea, a cigarette, and a look around.
Larry Kent breakfast, eh? We moved again and stopped for our com scared when I laid out the ground wire and fired the radio up. Nui Dat boomed in 5 by 5. We gave our lock stat in code and reported the absence of the enemy so far. Again we packed up and continued on. This time we changed direction east, which I duly noted on my trouser leg. We had no real plan besides proving that Charlie was not in residence. We wandered round the AO for 5 days, travelling around 4,000 metres, and found nothing but an unused footpad, an old ox track, so it was time we pulled out. We chose an LZ in the far south of AO for exfil. We gave our exfil LZ in code to the DAT and then confirmed the pickup time. 1,500 hours today, panel and smoke required. Right on time, we could hear the distinctive beat of a Huey, and the pilot came up on the PC 10. Inbound standby. Show panel. I see yellow panel. Throw smoke. I see blue. Our PC gave them the lowdown on enemy activity, which was zilch. Then the chopper was on the ground. We bolted for the door, quickly took off, and in 15 minutes we were landing at ANZAC. We said g'day to our mates who had come up to greet us, cleared weapons into the test fire pit, and headed for the lines. There was a bit of a talk around the lines about how patrols from I and J Troop had been involved in firefights, chalking up first successes for 3 Squadron. Both had been pulled out, one by high extraction. This involved ropes being dropped through the trees in our patrol, and the patrol being very unceremoniously dragged out. I'd have to wait till I got to the boozer that night to find out the details. In the meantime, it was time to hand back the gear. I took the radios up to the SIG shack and handed in my codes. Gino Jansen debriefed me on my signals performance, which he said, "Getting better, Cobber." That was always good to hear, especially from a comm star like Gino. It was up to me to continue to progress on each patrol. Back to the lines to help return ammo to Des Kennedy at the ammo bunker. Des was the SSM, and he had seen service in Malaya, where he was awarded an MM. Borneo and Vietnam. He was an original member of Sarong's AATTV in 1962 and was literally the old man of the squadron. We handed back claymores, grenades and surplus ammo to Des and would draw fresh supplies when the next warning order was issued. As we had an uneventful patrol, we could assume it would be on us pretty quickly. We would have a few days in camp to rejuvenate and sink a few cold ones before we got the nod for the next op. In the meantime, it was good to kick back, have a hot shower and scrub the camp paint off, as well as any nasties that may have inhabited some of the darker crevices. We had a patrol debrief that went very well, except for the fact that water discipline was going to the front. I seemed to be the worst offender, as I never stuck to the Kirkes regime of a bottle cap only. Kirkes invariably had a full bottle left when we returned. And I made my crusade to emulate him. I never got there. I had excuses, of course. My pack was too heavy, my legs hurt, my heart was too small, and so on. But I've already mentioned, though he would never offer any water, nor would I have ever asked. So it was what it was. Regardless, I learned a serious lesson from Kirkes, and I'm forever grateful to him. In the mess and the booze of that night, we were wrapped by the story of the J Troop Patrol, commanded by Lieutenant Perry Nolan near Mai, and their subsequent action. Cole Jackson brassed up a VC at close range, and later the patrol encountered 2 more VC on a track and killed them too. Cole had a big nervous grin on his dial and never bought a beer all night. Cole was a good mate and a top rugby league player in Perth. He was a wild dude and a loyal mate. Another time we were scheduled to do a 12-man fighting patrol led by the 2 Roberts, Chris and Fred. I was the SIG carrying the 25 set radio and Ticker Grey carry the 64 set. At, at one of our stops, I laid out the ground wire to get comms with the 64. Psst, Ticker, pass me the radio. He rummaged in his pack and said very quietly, I think I left it back at our last comm stop. He let me sweat for a minute or two and then said, oh no, here it is. He hauled the radio out of his pack with a big grin on his face. I could have killed the bastard.
Footnote. After RTA, Ticker took discharge and went off to do a pilot's course and made a big quid during the airline strike by flying businessmen around Australia. He eventually gave flying away and stepped into air traffic control, where he remained till retirement. Lately, he's been pressed back into service managing the water bombers in New South Wales during bushfire emergencies. He lives near Tabiac in northern New South Wales.
This patrol also went off without incident. End of story, end of chapter.
That was chapter 20 from Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, as read by the author. Okay, so lots of great detail there about life around Nui Dat as you're preparing for a patrol, and then another story of a uneventful patrol. So were the uneventful patrols a relief or a disappointment?
No, it was good that we weren't up to our neck in it, but also none of us were too gung ho to complain about no action.
Right.
It'd have been a bit silly. We would have been given an uppercut by somebody if you had carried on like that. We had a few stars like Ray Mickelberg and those guys that seemed to enjoy the bush um, much more than the rest of us.
Hmm. So, so when the warning orders come in, what are they based on? Are they based on intelligence that there's action in that region or in that sector? What?
Yeah, they'd come in from the headquarters of the brigade headquarters down, the task force headquarters down the bottom, down in the rubber, where the intelligence people would determine the movements of 764 regiment or whatever, whether North Vietnamese coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail and their camps are in this area here, or the local, we used to call them the Chow Duck Yarpers, the local VC, what they were doing. So we kept an eye on all parts of the province.
Right.
Um, Basically, to keep that was a reconnaissance regiment. We with the authority to blow up the bad guys if we had to.
Hmm. But it sounds like the on this patrol at least that this area hadn't been touched or there wasn't really
No,
any evidence.
we had a couple of mountain ranges, the Long Highs, the May Towers. Um, we did a bit of work up in the May Towers and the foothills of the May Towers.
Hmm.
That's where a lot of bad guys were. The battalions, they did a lot of operations in the Long High Hills,
Hmm.
8th Battalion especially, while we were there. But in the main, there were great swathes of jungle that we hadn't touched, and they needed to know whether there was any camps in there or any
Right.
supply dumps or whatever.
Mm.
So we'd wander around. We'd have an
Right.
AO of 6 by 6, 6 grid squares by 6 grid squares, with 1,000 yard um, space between AOs. So you could have a patrol on this one, patrol on that one, and patrol on that one. Keep an eye on the same track.
Right.
And that's what it was. That's how we operated.
Mm. Yeah, and sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you
Yeah,
you get unlucky, depending on your perspective, whether you meet someone or don't. But
yeah.
yeah, so there's a couple of patrols now where you came in ready to go and didn't see anyone, and
I must admit that was exciting that we were ready to do it and nothing happened. We never disappointed.
right.
Some blokes may have been, but I never was.
Well, I mean, when the reality comes and when the bad guys show up, then you've got to do something about it. And so you talk about Cole Jackson there at the end of the chapter, um, and the reaction to having, knocked out some of the enemy. Um, it's going to be different for everyone, how they're going to
Yeah,
react to that kind of thing, and you're not really going to know what it's going to be like until you've gone through it. And most people probably couldn't picture it.
yeah. No,
So,
exactly right.
and
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, but he had there to do a job, and the fact that there was no one lost to enemy fire in your whole year.
That's right.
Um, um,
Except
it,
one Kiwi patrol commander.
was in your year that you were there?
Yeah, Graham
Right,
Campbell.
right. Yeah, and so that was I'm going back to the Graham Camp. So we talked to just to flip back in the book a little bit because Graham Campbell was mentioned very briefly, but only once. He was mentioned in the Dat Life chapter, which is chapter 16. Um, and so talked about how Graham was killed in action, but we didn't really go into that. How did we lose? How did you lose Graham? Was it
Well, I really don't know how it happened. He's a patrol commander, and they've obviously come across a track or something. And the SIGs told him to attack up ahead, so he said, sort of prop and move forward to the SIG and stuck his head out in the track and got whacked.
Hmm, right?
And that's all I ever knew about it, and they wouldn't talk about it anyway.
And the rest of his patrol got pulled out, or did they have to
Yeah, they fought a bit of a battle and then pulled back and got pulled out. I
and
think
got and got Graham out as well?
they got him too. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, the odds of the fact that you lost so few blokes between the two, the Kiwis and the Australians there is kind of astonishing.
yeah.
But
The thing I was most remarkable was that we treated the Kiwis with kindness.
right,
No one gobbed off and said, he's Kiwi. None of that stuff happened.
right.
And we basically was in sympathy for them, the poor buggers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
But
It's tough.
Graham was a nice bloke too. Big Maori looking rugby player.
Mm, right. Yeah, well, rest in peace, Graham. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we tend to skip past things, and they're mentioned in passing in the book, and we don't really go into detail. And so it's always good
Yeah.
to get a chance to come back and give
I
it a little bit more focus.
didn't speak about that much because I didn't know much about it.
Yeah,
There's bound to be people ring me up and say, Malone, this is what happened.
right.
Uh,
But they can write their own book. Everyone has their own memories and own perspectives, right? And this isn't.
yeah,
And the important thing to remember is this isn't designed to be a historical document. This
yeah,
is a
yeah.
memoir. This is your memory. So.
It's pretty historical.
Yeah. And then the last thing you have in that chapter is talking about Ticker Gray messing with you, saying he's lost the radio.
I tell you, we had the two Roberts on that patrol,
Yeah,
Chris Roberts and Freddie Roberts,
yeah.
10-man patrol. And I thought Fred was going to kill him on the spot when he heard him say that. Oh, jumped up, you bloody idiot. And old Ticker's sitting there with a big grin and he said, oh, here it is. Bloody scoundrel.
Well, he was always a bit of a scoundrel. He was always a bit of a.
Yeah.
He always had a smile on his face. I remember him when I was growing up.
They get a prominent run in my book of Wild Men of the SAS.
Yeah, yeah. One of the many future books.
Can't rush,
Well,
can't rush these things, mate.
no, no. But there's plenty of time to talk about that. But we'll do that in the future because that is all the time we have this week for Never Die Wondering. Join us next week for the next installment of our exploration of Mick Malone's career as we get into the 21st chapter of the book itself, titled Hotting Up. If you have a copy of Two Ranks, read along with us. I've been Toby Malone, and thank you to Mick Malone for excitingly joining me on this journey.
That's been my pleasure.
This has been Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words. For links to purchase your own copies of Mick's books, visit the show notes or mickmalone.com.au. This podcast is produced by Toby Malone, Joe Malone and Mick Malone and engineered by Toby Malone. Theme music is The Happy Wanderer, the official SAS march, as reimagined by Cormac Malone and Meg Logue Malone. Yes, this is a family affair. This is a GM production in association with Imprimatur Books.